was suddenly told this by Bob, and I was like, huh. Naturally, my parents, listening on speakerphone, looked equally confused. I put the call on hold for a moment and explained the situation to my parents. Then, my parents and I burst into fits of laughter. Come on, move out. Who are you telling that to? LLL. My mother was laughing so hard, and my father was in tears from laughter. Holding back my laughter, I told Bob, take your time. LL. Biuik Stumplik Sadik.
My name is Lucy Shimazaki.
I'm a 32-year-old office worker. I married Bob 2 years ago. We met at work. After getting married, I decided to continue working at the same place. However, I always ensured I took care of the household chores after work or on my days off. But on the other hand, Bob hardly did any housework. Or better put, he never really did. Bob's parents divorced when he was young, and he grew up under the loving care of his mother, Donkey. As a result, he was quite the mama's boy. I wouldn't mind that much, but he often compared me to Kathy. For instance, when it came to cooking, he'd often say things like, my mom's food tastes better. I love it. Or Emma's cooking is way better than yours. And when I try to comfort him after a rough day at work, Bob would retort, my mom would be kinder. Your words lack love. That's what he would say, always being compared to Kathy. I've recently stopped offering words of comfort, and I've begun brushing off Bob's complaints about housework. I even considered divorce, but Kathy and my mother, Donna, were childhood friends. When Bob and I had decided to get married, no one was happier than Kathy. So divorcing felt like a betrayal to Kathy, which made the decision difficult. Then, one day, Bob dropped a bombshell. I wasn't thrilled by that idea, because, hold on, that's too sudden. We don't even have a room for your mom in our place. We live in a condo, not a luxury high-rise or anything, just a standard one. It's just spacious enough for the two of us. But Bob was like, why don't we just move then?
You realize how much of a hassle it is to change our address. Just talking about moving so lightly, but moving costs money.
Plus, there's the tedious task of updating our address everywhere.
Besides, last time I met your mom, she said she was fine living alone.
I often go back to my parents' house, and sometimes I meet Kathy there. Since she's a childhood friend of my mother, Donna, she occasionally visits their home. At that time, Kathy mentioned, my son wants me to live with him, but I don't want to intrude on your newly life. Plus, I often visit Donna's place like this, so I'm not that lonely. I did mention that to Bob, but I truly believe Kathy wasn't just being polite. I feel like that was her genuine sentiment. But Bob looked entirely unconvinced.
She said that once it's dead, we should check with her.
With that, Bob stormed off to his room. Why won't he listen to what others have to say? And why won't he consider my perspective? All I could do was sigh. A few days later, I headed to my parents' house. Both my parents and Kathy were there. I told them about Bob's plan to have Kathy move in with us.
I'm truly sorry that my son has caused you trouble. Lucy.
Kathy apologized with a bowed head, but it wasn't her fault.
Just lift your doubt. Hey, that question this me. It's not your fault at all.
But still, I always tell Bob that parents aren't forever, and he shouldn't rely too much.
I tried to console her, but Kathy seemed disappointed with her son's behavior. My mother said to Kathy, Kathy, you can be too kind sometimes. Do you ever discipline Bob strictly?
It's not that simple.
Well, Kathy understood that Bob was being unreasonable. He was still her only family, making it hard for her to be strict with him. Sensing the tense atmosphere, my father, wanting to lighten the mood, made a suggestion.
How about we all take a trip to a hot spring resort? As a family, I happen to have some tickets.
Everyone was excited about Dad's suggestion. I thought it would be nice to go on a hot spring trip after such a long time, but there was a hitch.
Wait, there are 4 tickets. That's the 3 of us. And and what's the 4th?
Exactly. We had 4 tickets in front of us, but we were a family of 3. Our eyes turned to Kathy, but she hesitated and said, oh no, I wouldn't want to impose and all pass this time. We were uncertain about what to do with the remaining ticket, but I had promised my parents to invite Bob once we got home. So we headed back. After arriving home, I told Bob about the upcoming hot spring trip. I had a feeling he might object, but to my surprise, he said, sounds good. Go on and enjoy. I was relieved. However, when I actually tried to invite Bob for the trip, he declined outright, saying, "I'm good. Actually, I have plans that day." I called my dad and informed him that Bob wouldn't be joining us. After the call, Bob approached me. "Yeah, I saw her." As I responded, Bob suddenly pressed in closer, asking, "Did she say anything about living together?" I briefly explained to him what Catherine had expressed regarding the situation. After hearing that, Bob let out a sigh and said, "I knew it. My mom is just being considerate of your family. I think we should tell her not to get involved with that house." I got pretty upset at his words and snapped back. "That's no way to talk. Mom said she can't be firm with you. Don't you think she wants you to be more independent?" Bounce. Bob grabbed my chest. Our arguments always escalated this way, and I often ended up getting hurt. Bob was unfazed and sternly told me, "If you ever badmouth my mom, I won't let it slide." With that, he released his grip, pushing me away. Thankfully, I wasn't injured, but I began to consider the possibility of divorce. 2 days later, I decided to visit my parents' home again. On this day, since my mother was out with Catherine, only my father was home. When I relayed to him what had transpired, he sighed a lot. But after I finished, he reassured me, "Uri, if it ever gets too tough, you can always come back home. Your mom and I are always on your side."
I felt tears welling up at his words.
When I mentioned considering a divorce, my father passionately responded, "That's part of your life." Anyway, feeling energized, I was about to head home when my father told me what happened with that 4th ticket. The day before the Spain trip, I was packing my things. Then Bob came into my room. We hadn't really spoken since our fight, so I wondered why he was here, expecting some complaint. I was on guard, but his unexpected question took me aback. I told him, "We're leaving by 10 in the morning," and he replied with a simple "got it" and left the room. I was puzzled about his confirmation, but figured he was just double-checking the departure time, so I didn't give it much thought. However, little did I know what was to come. On the day of the trip, it seemed Bob was still in his room, but I didn't dwell on it and headed to my parents' place. My parents were there, but one person was missing. They haven't arrived yet. They sent a message saying, "Finish up some errands and meet you there."
Oh, so we head to the inn first?
And so the 3 of us set off to the inn where we'd be staying. This inn was famously difficult to book, and Dad boasted, "We were lucky to get these tickets." Our room was fantastic, with a clear view of a lush bamboo forest from the window. As Mom and I admired the view, Dad snapped a photo of us. Just as we were having this wonderful family moment, a call came in to spoil it. From Dad. What could he want? "Hello." I decided to put the call on speakerphone so my parents could hear as well. Then, with a snicker, Bob's voice came through. "Bad news?" Before I could wonder what he meant, Bob dropped the bomb. Bob's sudden words left me stammering. "What?" Naturally, my parents, who had heard everything over speakerphone, looked equally confused. I put the call on hold briefly to explain the situation to them. Upon hearing it, all of us burst out laughing. Seriously, telling someone to move out? Who's he talking to? Lol. My mom was in stitches, and my dad was laughing so hard tears formed in his eyes, trying to suppress my laughter. I said to Bob, "Well, enjoy your time. I'll owe you, XP people." The moment I hung up, the whole family exploded in laughter. Wait now. Hold on. Aside. He can't be serious. What's Bob even thinking? After our laughter subsided, I smirked and told my parents, "I bet it's chaos over there right now." I never imagined Bob would choose that moment to tell someone to move out. Anticipating what might come next, we decided to wait for the person holding the 4th ticket. Meanwhile, as for Bob, right after I left, he sprung into action. He first called a moving company to store all of my belongings in a storage unit he had rented. Then, he decided to go to my parents' house to bring all their furniture to our house. Upon arriving, he immediately started loading all the furniture onto a truck. Catching sight of this, "Wait, what are you doing?" Seeing Catherine's bewildered expression, Bob, with a smirk, took her hand and said, "I've decided to divorce Lori and I'm gonna live with you." Then, Catherine looked completely lost. All the while, the moving process continued. He sent a message saying, "I have some errands to run, so I'll meet you there. Go ahead without me." After moving all the items, Bob arrived at our home and began unloading my parents' belongings. Throughout the process, Catherine seemed confused, but it all clicked when she saw everything in our home. "Mom, let's live here from now on." I've gotten rid of the unnecessary person. Upon hearing Bob's words, Catherine had a look of disbelief on her face. And then she said to Bob, "What are you going to do about Lori?"
Marquise, I'm kicking Lori out. I don't need her if I have you.
Vision at this. Catherine lost her temper.
Enough. Always say my mom. You need to grow up.
Stunned by her rare outburst, Bob tried to placate her, but Catherine's fury intensified.
As for me, how do you think you are? You have a wife who loves you. I care about Lolita too. What are you thinking? Treating her like that? Reflect on your actions.
As Catherine tried to leave the house, Bob attempted to stop her. However, she forcefully resisted.
Why would I tell you that? Cool down a bit and reflect on what you've done.
Catherine shook off a bewildered Bob and left the house, ignoring the lamenting Bob. Catherine hailed a cab and headed to a certain place. Meanwhile, as for us, we had explored the entire inn, checking out the different places. Just as we were about to hit the hot springs, sorry I'm late, walking into the room was Catherine. Turns out, we had given the last hot spring ticket to her. At first, Catherine was hesitant, but after hearing about the incident between Bob and me, she decided to join the trip to teach Bob a lesson.
Now how did things go with Bob?
When I asked Catherine about Bob, she replied with a chuckle.
When I got angry, he seemed taken aback. Well, he's always been spoiled, so he probably didn't expect me to snap. When I got angry, he seemed taken aback. Well, he's always been spoiled, so he probably didn't expect me to snap.
Still, I've never seen you mad before. Kathy, I kinda wish I had.
Mom laughed, and Dad seemed curious.
Is Catherine really that calm all the time?
Oh yes, back in the day, she hardly ever got upset. She was so clueless, she wouldn't even notice if guys were picking on her.
Come on, Mary.
Watching the cheerful exchange between Mom and Catherine, both Dad and I were amused. Afterwards, we enjoyed the hot springs, watched some entertainment, and had a great time on our trip. But after dinner, we received a call. It was from Bob, whom we'd almost forgotten about. We decided to put him on speakerphone so everyone could hear.
Hello, Sakata catchers. Breeze?
Aware that Catherine was listening to the call, Bob directed his anger at me.
Responsibility? What do you expect me to do?
When I posed that question, Bob came up with a ridiculous demand. The audacity of his request almost made me laugh. In fact, my parents next to me were already laughing.
Come on, she's right here, you know.
Is really shooting himself in the foot, isn't he?
While watching my parents chuckle, I calmly said,
I can apologize, but do you even realize the situation I'm in right now?
Still fuming, I relayed the situation to Bob.
You know this call.
Suddenly, Bob became visibly flustered, his earlier confidence nowhere to be found. Bob, hearing Catherine's voice, panicked and blurted out, "No way." Why? But Catherine simply continued, unfazed. I was on a spa trip with the Tuzioka family today. But more importantly, what was it you said earlier? Ignoring the stuttering Bob, Catherine firmly said, "You always say you need to treasure your wife, yet all you do is call out for Mom. Ex-people, enough is enough. You married Lucy because you loved her, right?" Seeing Catherine this angry was so rare that we couldn't help but exclaim, "Wow, scary."
I think this might be the first time I've ever seen her this mad.
As my mom pointed out, the normally calm and gentle Catherine rarely showed anger like this. We all just watched, captivated by the unexpected display. Catherine's scolding continued without pause. "When your parents are gone, what will you do? Think you can handle things alone? I raised you with love."
What will you do? Think you can handle things alone? I raised you with love. When your parents are gone, what will you do? Think you can handle things alone? I raised you with love.
But I don't recall bringing up someone so helpless without their parents. Grow up and learn to stand on your own. After saying that, Catherine shared a knowing smile and eye contact with me. My parents were already muttering to Catherine, "Catherine, you are scary, and we've never seen you like that before." Witnessing such a contrasting demeanor, I thought to myself, she's terrifying, as I continued the call with Bob.
Also, after this trip, I'm considering divorcing you.
Hearing the word divorce, Bob began to panic again.
No, it's more than that. I've been fed up with your mommy issues. All you made is smile, right?
Although you're on the verge of being disowned by her now. Bob seemed even more panicked, but I calmly responded, We'll talk after my trip. Our family and Catherine spontaneously high-fived each other. Now to Marceau. I think we're being too easy on him. Lori, can we discuss something? I had a discussion with Catherine. Well, I thought it might be a bit harsh on Bob. I felt it would be good for him to face the consequences of his actions. So, I agreed to the plan, and carrying that momentum, we had a feast and even held a karaoke contest as the night went on. Our 2-day speed trip concluded without a hitch, and after touring various sites, we headed back home. That home where forsaken Bob awaited us. When I opened the door and caught a glimpse of the living room, I was utterly shocked. Where did our tidy living room go? Trash and laundry were scattered everywhere. As we entered the house, we saw Bob sitting on the floor in a hunched position. The moment he saw us, he began to prostrate himself. I decided to confront Bob directly.
How was that apology for? For meal or for me?
Bob replied weakly. I exchanged glances with Catherine and said,
After that, we had a discussion about what to do with you. Lies, whose mustache was Rusher's.
Bob stared intently at my face. I calmly responded.
That's me. Look this way. I need alimony, so please, let's get divorced. Also, cut ties with your mother. Mealy water bad gratitude.
Lastly, continue living in this house alone. Bob clearly looked bewildered by my words. Impossible. I've never done household chores before. You've been relying on Lucy and me for everything, but that ends now. You've depended on others too much. From now on, fend for yourself. Catherine calmly stated, my parents also agreed with us.
After hearing Lucy's side, Parsley, I can't trust you with her. With her.
Bob needs to understand the hardships Catherine and Lucy faced. He should experience it firsthand.
Bob's face turned paler by the second. However, Catherine's and my stance remained firm.
You've been constantly complaining about me, haven't you? And now you suddenly want me back. Stop being selfish.
You should appreciate what Lucy and I have done for you and learn to stand on your own 2 feet. Hearing these words, Bob repeatedly pleaded, I'm so sorry. Please don't. But we ignored him. Then, Lucy and I delivered our final words. I'll come back for my belongings later. It's a shame. Our living together is ruined because of your actions.
If you'd listened to us, it wouldn't have come to this. It's too little too late now.
With those words, we left the house. Bob was sobbing uncontrollably, but we all ignored him and calmly shut the door behind us. At 6 Retaliation, Bob and I finalized our divorce. Catherine also moved all her belongings back to her original home, cutting ties with Bob entirely. Although Bob and I continued to work at the same place after our divorce, we occasionally ran into each other. His suits were always wrinkled, and he had a damp smell about him, which led other coworkers to treat him like a pariah. Furthermore, he's not particularly competent at his job, so I've heard he might be on the chopping block soon. Rumor has it that Bob's living on his own, but he's struggling with housekeeping. He can't clean properly, so his place is turning into a trash-filled mess. Because of this, other residents are getting annoyed, and he might soon be served an eviction notice. At home, I've heard he calls out my and Catherine's names every day. Well, all I can say to him is good luck. On the other hand, I decided to move all my belongings to my new place. All my stuff was safely stored in a warehouse by Bob, so everything was intact. My new place is close to my childhood home. I continue to visit my folks regularly, and I'm still on good terms with Catherine's. We're planning another spade trip soon, this time with my parents and Catherine's. For now, I'm not too keen on marriage, but if I find the right person, I'll make sure to steer clear of Mama's boys next time.